greater number as your denominator. And if you get stuck, raise your hand. You can always draw a picture. If the zero doesn't work, go to drawing a picture. See, that's both of y'all just really close. So you want to draw a picture. Now I will tell you, when they draw a picture,
I'm all face. They said all
remove face first when they can put it on the side. You want to put it on the side.
do it to make sure it's the same size. So do
that's Hershey's now.
What is
Her and Mrs. Miller are putting
what is this? We'll divide these up.
his into that flag.
you can tell these how close they are. Alan got you. But it is really close. That's why I keep reinforcing. Yeah, either way, that would be better.
Y'all gotta flip one card, flip two cards, and flip two cards. And that's what we're trying to figure out. So you got 10 over 10. 10 cents.
3 times as many pieces as 9.
Small cards.
That's just 3
No,
different ways.
don't do that. You don't look at the cards. You just, that's like stacking. You're not trying to win. Just put two face
This one's
cards.
interesting because you have the same
Technically, you want the
you have the
larger
same
number
numerator.
on
That really makes it
A
easy.
second ago, I had gotten now. If you
Should they put the big one on top?
Yeah, no, it's on the bottom.
On the bottom. That's what I was telling
And
you.
you can eventually get to that point, but initially we like to start with something they can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if you want to challenge them, you can say switch it up.
and then we were dealing with mixed numbers.
And then
That's
You're
what
right. But for right now, we're just gonna do big on the bottom.
oh, he's got 10 cents.
Would 5 sevens be bigger?
No,
10 cents.
and then that's a whole.
So that's greater, 10 cents?
We were equal the first time. He won these cards. Yeah, every single one.
Those, you want those? Those are his. 2 of these are yours, and 2 of those are his. So y'all are even right now, technically.
Okay. You wanna go first this time?
It doesn't matter about whoever gets the bigger one.
I think that's
10
I got a 1
1
and a 10.
and 10. So which one's bigger?
Him again.
Again? So you got the bigger one.
These don't need to get in because those are hurt.
Don't worry about it. No, these are. Those are the ones you want. You think 9 gonna be bigger? So you wanna do 10 9?
I could easily give them.
Technically could.
For some reason.
So that's 9 tenths there.
Your turn, Kay. Oh, I can.
Yeah, go ahead and mix them there because we're still 7 on top. Up 5 7 on that one.
Ms. Harris just brought up a good point. You know, I said to start with larger denominators. As they get better, you can flip flop it and make the large number a numerator because a little word problem, but now keep in mind, by the time your child gets to this point, they will be familiar with fraction bars, they'll be familiar with like fractions. We're just trying to condense it into a small amount of time. We'll compare everything to one whole because fractions are parts, and they have to understand that they are part of a whole. So if I'm talking about a candy bar, then this represents one whole candy bar. So Miss Miller ate half of a candy bar. This is what I ate. Miss Harris ate 3/8 of the same candy bar. So we were craving some dessert after lunch, so me and her split a candy bar. I got one half of it, and she practices a little bit better self-control. She ate only 3/8. All right? And this is what your children will do. They will actually have fraction bars to work with. Using a model, show how much they ate all together. So I know this is an adding problem. It's 1/2 plus 3/8. But the problem is, it's not all the same. So this is where those equivalent fractions come in handy. They can say, we'll teach them to count up. 2 times as many pieces would be 2/4. 1/2 and 2 of these are the same thing. 3 times as many pieces would be 3/6, 4/8. And I tell mine, go up about 5 places, okay? 3/8, because we're trying to get, and I don't even have to count hers up because I already see common ground. Now I can add them together. 4/8 plus 3/8 equals, what would that be? 7/8. Now let's test it to see. So I changed my 1/2 to 4/8. So let's see if 4/8 is the same thing. And you see how much easier that is to look at? So we went from the unfamiliar to the familiar. All right? Now I want you to practice one. Raymond watched a beetle on the sidewalk. It crawled 1/3 of a yard, then rested for a bit, and then crawled 1/4 of a yard farther. How far did the beetle crawl in all? So this one whole represents one whole yard. So see if you can get that 1/3 and 1/4 on common ground. And if you can't, I know it's kind of sweet rushing in here. And I'm going to go back to the old one just so y'all have an example to look at. And if you notice, I encourage them to put them on top of each other, the vertical setup, so they can make equivalent fractions going across.
Plus what, 1/4, right? Yeah, because look at it. You got Raymond watched the beetle on the sidewalk. It crawled 1/3 of a yard. So there's one whole yard right here, right? 1 yard, right? One whole yard right there. Then rested for a bit and then crawled 1/4 of a yard farther. 1/4, right? How far did the beetle crawl? So you do 1/3. 1/3 is almost half, right?
Now, that's okay to write it, write it on top of each other. There's so much easier to work through.
1/3, and then that's 2/3, 3/3 of the whole yard, right? So the whole number. 10 is a whole, 3 is 1.
Get them on the same ground. So if I'm going to put that into 2 more pieces.
So you got,
That would be times 2 times 2.
We're gonna be here till 8 o'clock. You gotta listen to 3 teachers.
no, I don't. And then 1/4 of a yard,
They're the same.
then crawled 1/4 of a yard farther.
They're
It don't
matching.
matter anyways. If we go listen to one.
Okay, let me show you an easy way.
Go up about 5 and then go up about 5 and then try to find a match.
I got it.
What'd you get?
2, 7.
Okay, watch me. An easy way is, see what the top number is, it's 1. Let's skip count by 1. Let's go 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's skip count by 3. Okay, 3, 6, 9,
12, 15.
that's a 1 on top, so let's skip count by 1 again.
No, that's okay. I just don't like 5 because they're not so.
That's a 4, so we're gonna skip count by 4.
Eight, 16.
Okay, What's
there.
four?
But a lot of them,
He
believe
got
it or
confused.
not, after a week or
12,
two,
13, 14, 15,
after they
16.
do 3 and 4
And
so
then
much, they'll just go ahead and do 12.
Now, I
And
wanna
that's
see
the
if you
point,
got a
instead of-
match in the
Who
denominator,
wants
the
to
bottom
I
of them.
tell you,
Anyone
what's on my
matching?
desk, and I tell you.
4,
You won't
8,
understand this
no,
much as you
12.
discover it.
The
Just
12s are a match.
You see that, Brandon?
So now, we're gonna clean it up, and I'm gonna pull over
There's
4 12s and 3 12s,
At this point in class,
and I add the first.
bars, he'll have an image in his mind.
And 12,
You know, so they'll do the top of the fraction bars just to create a picture.
Okay. You see how that works? That's okay. But did you see that? Okay, so we don't have to do the yards. That's a much better one. Want me to just give you a random one? Like, well, two, 1, 2 anyway. Let's do 1 third.
That's the only reason.
Alright, Brandon?
But see, that's what we want to do.
I got 1 on top, so
We won't see all of this.
3,
Now, we're
4,
3 and 4 so long, they'll know, oh, that's coming out. And
Nine,
you do the shots.
12,
I just
15.
didn't work that well. So, yeah,
I got 5 on top, so
we do a whole list of the LCD and so it just makes it more understanding when I see that self-discovery.
14,
What was your match? 4, 12, and, all right, now look,
35.
1, 2,
Let's keep on going with this one.
what should that number be?
6,
So what'd you get, Code?
7,
You missed 3, so
30.
1, 2,
Oh, you didn't have that.
12, 15.
yeah, you just left it. All right, let's check your work. And I would use the models. I know some of y'all are trying to draw the models, and it can be difficult to draw. But this represents 1 yard, and lots of times I'll write it up here. So the beetle walked 1/3 of a yard and rested, and then another 1/4 of a yard. All right, kids, what was the common ground? What was that denominator? What can I cut this into and put them on the same page? Brianna?
You had to turn.
All right, and so we cut them into 12s. How many 12s matches 1/3? 4. Okay, so I'm gonna take my 12s here. And even 4/12, even though 4/12 uses greater digits, it's the exact same amount. All right, Kate, I saw your hand. How many 12s matched 1/4?
3.
All right. Oh, no. Change the size of them. This is why they have their own set. All right, so Brianna changed her 1/3 to 4/12. Okay, come on now. There you go. Okay, changed his 1/3 to 3, or 1/4 to 3/12. Now it's super easy. They're on the same ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 12ths should have been your answer. 7/12 of a yard. And most of y'all did it by hand, so 1/3 plus 1/4, and we count up to 6, 3/12, to 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 3 9s. Three 12, so you can stop once you find your match, and I have mine circled there, it's just
And we do this in our class, we've done this, but we haven't used the board actually. Number top it, making the larger or the smaller numbers. Okay. I just wanted to share that with you. If you're interested, and I can pass this around and y'all can take a look inside. It's got cards and various things.
And we have a few minutes left before it's ELA's time, so if you would take just a few more minutes and practice playing fraction grab as the bag comes around with your child, because that will be a game that they will play off and on for the rest of the school year. And just if you have a question, just raise your hand.
Monday through Friday.
And then you take it,
Then you gotta return it. But y'all don't always keep up with everything. Son, you don't always keep up with everything. Even though I do stuff away from you, you know. So quit asking me. Okay? I love you to death, but that's the answer for right now.
A story jar activity. Activity 2, if we have enough time, we're going to do some interviews, and then we're going to wrap it up and do a take home. So welcome, thank you for coming to our family night. Your presence reinforces the benefits of parents as partners in education. Tonight we will be engaging in activities that will help your child improve his or her writing skills. So here's Ms. Hunter with activity number 1, story jars.
Before I talk to you a little bit about the story jars, I just kind of want to tell you a little bit about how I lead into writing. I have a very short period of time because I have 3 fifth grade reading classrooms. So I have to make sure that I incorporate both. So usually what we'll do is, and the kids will tell you, in the morning we'll do a read aloud of some type, and then off my read aloud we'll do some writing. One way that I incorporate character setting and plot, well, I have plot, this problem, same thing, is through my read aloud. Now this is a small group read aloud that I do with the kids. It's Odysseus and the Bag of Winds. Right now we're finishing up a folktale unit, legends, myths, fairy tales, fables, clouds dotted the sky, but sure enough, as he stared more closely, a familiar outline rose on the horizon. It was the jagged peaks of Ithaca. Odysseus could recognize the shape of his beloved, and his heart leaped up into his throat to see its familiar curves and points. The rest of Odysseus' men saw the same view a few moments later, and the entire ship erupted into cheers and laughter. Men hugged each other and wiped tears of joy from their eyes. After 10 long years of separation from family and friends, they would soon be back home in perhaps only a few more hours. As the outline of Ithaca became sharper and clearer, Odysseus' spirit soared. He would see his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. Telemachus had been an infant when Odysseus left for the war. Y'all, these Greek names give me sometimes. Okay, so anyway, it goes on, and what eventually happens is, and it's okay just to read to your children. You don't have to stop and do a lesson every time. Sometimes just reading to them, reading aloud, and letting them hear you read, and just your fluency and your intonation and your expression. You know, sometimes it's good just to read to them. You don't have to do a lesson every time. Just sit beside them and read them is good. So we go through the story, and what happens is the men get jealous because they're like, why is he hiding that bag? You know, it's got a gold cord around it. You know, it probably has jewels in it. And what happens is, so he decides, you know, he's going to take a little nap because they're almost home. And just before they get home, the guys they almost capsize and they can't get back home. They go back to the guy who went Aeolus, and Aeolus was like, you know what, Poseidon didn't help you, Zeus didn't help you, you know, they've got other plans for you. And towards the end of the book, there's a little epilogue, and it kind of tells the children that there's more to the story, that there's going to be several more adventures, and you see some monsters, is it called the Hydra guys? Help me out. And the Cyclops and the Siren and all these different characters, okay? So, what I did with my kids, not with this particular book, with another one reading, as I said, okay, you're going to take your journal, and you're going to write your name. So what they did, journal, and in one square, they would write their name. And I said, okay, now think of one character, one other name, one other person you want in your story. So they did that. So we limited it to 2 characters. That's what we did to start. And I said, okay, choose a weapon. Any kind of weapon. Invisible cap, sword, bag of winds, anything that you want. What'd you come up with, Landon?
A fire sword.
A fire. Brandon, Kate, what kind of weapons were you using in your day?
I wasn't here when you did.
Okay. So then we would come up with a weapon. And then I would say, okay, now come up with a setting. Okay, and then we came up with a setting. And then I say, okay, now come up with a monster. And then they would pick a monster. So, yeah.
We did the thing on Halloween.
Yeah, we did that too. Yeah, we did. So, what y'all are going to do today is kind of what I do with my kids is pre-writing and kind of getting them ready. So you're going to do a little activity. And what you're going to do is you're going to have 3 jars. And the first thing you do is you're going to reach in because you're not going to know who your characters are. Okay? We're doing in class. But, so, you're going to have a little fun. I know that there's a bunny in here, so they might not be as, so, some paper and a pencil, and you're going to write a story with your children. You don't know what you're going to get. It's going to be a surprise.
Come on, Brenda. Come on.
Gabe, you're with us.
I guess.
And you can make it funny.
It's behind him. Hey, can I get my jacket back?
Y'all playing musical chairs.
Okay, y'all gotta pick characters. We got,
Just one?
yeah, pick one tab that's gonna be your character.
Okay.
Yours is, that's a good one.
I haven't got it.
Did y'all
What
get
you
your
get?
character over here?
We haven't got the character.
And it can be a short story, it doesn't have to be a whole chapter book. Quick writes what we call them.
We got, I think they got theirs. I think I'm gonna do yours. We got a main character that's a movie star, so he's in a cave, the plot is I got it. What you got?
It's your story.
Movie star is stuck in a cave with someone else.
Our job is just to
Movie star in a cave needs help. And you got a
I
robot.
need to figure out why the movie star is stuck in the cave and why he fell.
Wait, say that again? A robot in a theme park and his family that needs food. That's
Movie or
That's right.
I mean, you're talking science fiction stories here, right? Yeah.
Let's talk about the movie star first. Okay.
Meet the Robinsons.
Yeah, he found one in the rainforest.
Let's start with the movie star character. Let's say some stuff about like you were saying what is it gonna have? Let's see. Let's say you got Bart. Do we choose our weapon?
Alright, this is what you got to work with. You got your main character in your story is going to have to be a robot. The setting, the robot is in the theme park, is where the story takes place. And the problem in the story is there's a family that needs food. So you can take that and go anywhere you want to with it as long as you use those elements.
Can you use weapons that work that?
You can add whatever you want to it. But you can add what you want to it. But these are what you have to use. Your main character has to be, you also have to be a movie star. The setting is in a cave. I mean, you somehow have a weapon somewhere in the cave, okay? And then somebody needs help. That's pretty easy. This was not so bad. Theirs is, they have, speaking of, I don't have what the cruisers have. They have the president in the rainforest and somebody wins $1 million. So I was like, how's that gonna happen in the rainforest? Mama says he's gonna find a lottery ticket in the rainforest so far. That's what they got going so far.
The movie star has 12 bodies. Well, we can start with now. Should we start with let's say theme park should end. You want to go in the theme park system? Okay. Oh, there's family needs food. And then the robot comes on. It has to be the robot food. And we actually get the weapons for the robot. There was a robot that came to
I would think that would be a whole page of stuff.
Yes. Well, you write a little bit.
Main character.
Let's talk about the movie. And he's wearing what he has. Well, we better have the setting. I chose the right one. A family needs the theme park. It's all kind of items, all kind of food. Yeah, especially. Yeah, but what if it's at the high school? It is expensive. It's Mr. Ford. Because Mr. Howard, now it's the weapon. Let's the weapon to characters. So we can talk about the characters. And he came along. landed in a theme park. Yes. Oh, we're not, well, we can't do the guy with power. Oh, we can.
Check it on birth
Oh, Walker.
You can go wherever you want.
He played yeah, a robot that takes space. But he lands on theme.
Yes, he can land on the theme park.
How would his ship crash lands in the middle of the theme park? Okay. Somewhere else and then he has to walk to the theme park.
Yeah, let me see.
He landed and then no grassland. Now make it more interesting. Grassland. It's near a theme park. Yeah, farm. Yeah, and then he had to move things.
Poor man, did you drop somebody right there on the floor?
That's all we landed.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
I got money.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Then Diesel,
You're running from the bunnies.
you remember how you that's easy. That's easy. They have an easy one. We have hard one. We have science fiction. We have a robot that has to land near a theme park and a family needs it.
Well, what? Because, okay,
I chose it. I chose ours. Disney World, guys.
Carowinds.
Disney
Yeah,
World
that's
has there once was a robot who came from outer space. He landed near a farm and walked to the theme
And walked
park.
to,
A family that needed
took them hostage.
We don't want a bad robot.
Oh, you want a good robot? Stop thinking bad robot.
Why would he just want to?
What about like Star Wars, like R2D2? Well, the robot could be coming down to help the family that
And then
needs
also
food.
you put bugs
And then he takes it to
But in Diesel works, guys. And then that's easy.
that one's hard.
Let's think of another one. No, we don't have them.
Why can't the robot be a family?
What happened if the robot lost his family?
Yeah, that could be his family. And they go to the theme park to find food, like all the bolts and scrap metal and stuff.
Okay. He lost his family. He lost his family.
Yeah, he lost his family in the
Theme park.
There you go.
Oh, right here, buddy.
That's my thought.
What is that? What other movie? I'm playing Freddy. I'm playing,
Let's see, what else can we do? Actor stuck in a cave.
let's put his name. Okay, I got it. What's
Do-
what's an actor?
Mystery game.
Let's do Michael.
Wait, that's a
Jack Nicholson.
Star Wars spelled T-A.
With that. Because he was in Batman.
Really? Oh, he's one who filmed
Remember Michael Keaton?
Anyway, she's saying really nice things.
She actually fell in
His
the
conviction of one
Oh, yeah. Native American hideout.
Technically stuck in a cave. With that because
He's gonna go bang.
Hey, so my friend tells me he's in glasses.
yeah, both of it. Sticking to with eyes.
Well, listen, my brother's daughter just got glasses, and ophthalmologist called me, and she's also having problems. She's so tiny. I can teach my brother that your brain, if you have eyeballs in your brain is focusing so hard on visually trying to see things, that it doesn't have time to comprehend. It's like it doesn't have a brain. I've always known that Carly actually can't comprehend what she's doing. Brain's focused on vision.
I thought that was they have maybe 8 running roadgraphs the whole park just because they're going back.
He came up with this story. He just making case. I've been helping.
Still.
He's gonna do it too.
Yeah.
But like I said, she said,
They know.
because I've got them in her house.
Yeah.
Then I had nothing else to do.
But it may be.
Yeah. It might be. We had him tested last year. They didn't find anything. We took him to Stokes. Now we're going to keep him in Cheraw. Next to the State Farm place. On Market.
What used to be cable is there sometimes. Yeah, I know.
them all day.
Family.
Just put two-sided.
Color, because we're going to see.
Don't print on one page. Like, one page, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Instead of 45 pages.
I gotta make sure it goes 1, 2, 3.
Alright, guys, can you hear me now? Clap your hands once. Thank you. Alright, usually what I do in class, of course, they have a little bit more time, but I usually say, okay, we're gonna wrap it up in about 2 minutes. I know you're not finished, this is just your rough draft, so we're gonna be revisiting it and finishing it up. So, you got about 2 minutes just to kind of put an ending or just a stopping point, and then we're gonna share, if anybody wants to share what they've written, so. Okay.
You share. I'm not sharing. I'm not sharing.
Somebody's sharing.
Oh, that you said that, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Swan, you gonna share yours?
I will share mine. I didn't want to can't resist.
How long?
No, I know the kids, though.
I guess I'm done.
You said dad, yeah, I mean, it's B. B.
I don't really know what to discuss.
See, I'm one of those, I just like,
And
Girl,
it
like
was,
highlight, check, the solar spell, oh, okay.
I don't know what to say.
you wrote out to you. Who played, well, I can't ask who plays Nico. Because he is a great actor.
Well, the thing is, like I was telling this woman when I was a kid, it was right, and you would sit there and go,
And Joe plays and his
and I
man.
couldn't do it, I couldn't organize, I couldn't do anything. And some people,
Is the penguin?
I just can't let them.
Which one?
Right.
On the,
Some people
the
that
big
do,
fat
me,
guy?
I have to
Yeah,
like organize, I have to get
His
back
name
in my
is
head,
Penguin,
I
but
have
his
to-
real name is Doctor. Let's say Doctor.
My freshman year college.
There you go.
This is say Doctor in his, I'll just put the, pork chop. Not P.
She was a
Almost
drama.
half, this hurts.
Do pork chop or something. Don't put P.
Doctor P.
You just gonna stop laughing every time. He said Dr. P.
Doctor pork chop.
I didn't know that.
Alright, boys and girls. I'll do it. We have somebody, if you're gonna share next. Alright, this performance has a bunny in a swamp, and a treasure in his backpack.
That's
Dun,
not
dun,
fair.
dun, dun.
He's a doctor. He's a teacher. That's not fair.
What's not fair?
You're a teacher, you didn't know what this kid?
I got a bunny.
I'll have the money that takes friends and has a mustache, that'd be cute.
Alright. I was lost in the Okefenokee swamp. I spent days dodging alligators and slipping snakes. My food supply was gone and swamp water was making my stomach churn. Through the morning fog appeared a boat piloted by a large white bunny. His hind feet hung over the back of the flat boat and paddled slowly. Thwomp, thwomp, thwomp. That's my paddling sound. As he passed, he signaled me with a twitch of his ears to follow. I did. I swam behind into a little cove. There on a tiny islet was a chest. I opened it, and a pile of gold coins poured out. Rich! I'm rich, I thought. Taking the heavy box, I started across a muddy landing. Suddenly, I began to sink. Quicksand. Deeper and deeper I sank, box of gold still in my arms, until only my eyes peered above the mud. Away paddled the bunny, never looking back. The wump, wump. Who's next? I was brave. Who's next?
Alright, okay.
Kiki Joker.
Alright, you wanna tell me what you had?
We had a robot, a theme park, and a family that eats food.
Yeah, theirs was hard. A robot, a theme park, and a family that needs food.
There once was a robot who came from outer space. He landed near a farm and was trying to find his family. His weapon is a flamethrower and machine gun. So he set out for his journey. He found out a few seconds later his family is at the theme park. He needs to find his family food. So he needs to find his family some food badly. But some bad guy and it was the Joker and his and his man Dr. Porkchop.
All right, guys, this time we're gonna start off with math. And so we're gonna show you what's coming up in math. Miss Rebecca couldn't be here, she had to fly out to New Jersey, back to New Jersey for the weekend. So we're gonna talk about equivalent fractions and adding fractions, and if we get to it, subtracting fractions. And this is what they will see next week. Did you do you're doing your test tomorrow?
Yes.
All right, so we'll start on this stuff Tuesday. So we're going to start with equivalent fractions. So when you look at 2/3, when we were in school, and I always refer back to that so we can make a comparison, I was taught to make an equivalent fraction, you do the same thing to the top and the bottom. Times 2, times 3, times 4. Well, again, we're getting away from the procedures, so they'll kind of know the reasons why. So when we start with equivalent fractions next week, we'll encourage them, or we'll use different wording, like 2/3, which matches this picture right here. What if I wanted 2 times, okay, you got it, as many pieces? It doesn't change the amount that's shaded, but now 2/3 has changed to 4/6. The same amount, just more pieces, okay? If we wanted 3 times as many pieces for 2/3, and Ms. Harris is dividing it up, then they'll be able to recognize the amount hasn't changed. Just because these numbers are larger digits, the amount is still 2/3. So that would be, the equivalent fraction would be 6/9. And they know that equivalent means equal from our decimal conversations. Just another example, if we wanted to make it 3 times as many pieces, or 4 times, excuse me, 2/3 will turn into, or will become 8/12. And so that's how we'll start off, and as time goes on, they'll get used to, they'll recognize patterns, they'll come up with faster ways of doing it, okay? So we're going to look at another example. 1/5, again, we would have said in the past, times 2 to the bottom, times 2 to the top, but really that just means 2 times as many pieces, which would be 2/10 instead of 1/5. 3 times as many pieces.
It's coming. Well,
Is it? You want me to try to eat? There it is. So it's still 1/5, but now it's 3/15 and 4 times as many pieces. And our purpose behind this is just so they can see why it works. If they get to the point where they can make equivalent fractions without this, that's our goal. Then we'll move into comparing fractions. Again, we previously taught, and I was previously taught, crisscross and that'll figure out what the large fraction is. We've been discouraged, we've been asked not to do that just because it takes away from why it works. If they figure that out, that's fine. Sometimes parents will show their kids that shortcut, and that's fine. But we like them to learn the reason why it works. So we'll teach them 3 different methods. One is drawing a model, and I'll use my highlighter. So 3/7, I would shade in 3 out of 7. And this is something they could draw on their paper. 5/6, I would shade in 5 out of the 6. And they can clearly see 5/6 is greater than 3/7. It's obvious because it's longer. That's one method. They can draw a picture. Another method is they can create equivalent fractions like we just showed you until they find a common denominator. And that's pretty simple because they realize 35 is small or is greater than 18, so 5/6 is going to be greater than 3/7. And another way that we start out talking about initially is comparing it to 0, 1/2, and 1/2, kind of on a number line. So if I know 6 out of 6 is 1/2, then 5/6 is really close to 1/2. So I'm going to just make a little note. That's close to 1 whole. 3/7, half of 7 is 3.5, so 3/7 would be really close to 1/2. 1 whole is greater than 1/2, so 5/6 is greater than 3/7. That's another method. They can use both methods to help them check. So they need to know this in order to just become more comfortable with fractions before we get into adding and subtracting. Okay, this is a game they will learn, and we're gonna, if Ms. Harris is gonna pass out the materials, we'll show you how it works. And this is something you can do at home. They'll do it in the classroom, and it's just practicing comparing those fractions.
The kings are gonna be, if you have any, tens.
Okay.
Ms. Horton's coming around with paper and pencil.
Couple things.
Okay, y'all are sharing it everything on, okay?
Okay.
So we get the dates back.
Anything with
And they
that?
really enjoy this game
All right.
once we get the hang of it. So what you would do
How's that doing?
is you flip, choose a card from the deck. I always start off by saying the greatest of the two is your denominator. So if I flip first, I have a king and a 6. And we always tell them face cards are worth 10, aces are worth 1. So my fraction would be 6/10. All right, Ms. Harris is going to choose her 2 cards from the deck. Oh, I'm sorry. Are worth 1.